All right, good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I am bringing to you today, by the grace of God, a guest who many have heard about, some have not. And the story he has to share is proof, absolute proof, that no one is too far gone, that God loves each and every one of us, and all he wants is to fill heaven. So, my guest today is a warrior for Jesus, Zachary King. He is a former satanic high wizard who spent 26 years in the occult, practicing the occult, before he one day had, well, I don't know if it's a one day or if it's process, I think I know the story, a miraculous conversion and is now traveling the world speaking about the Lord through his new religion of Catholicism. Zachary, welcome so much to Breakfast with Bacon. First of all, correct anything if I said anything incorrect, but thank you so much for for speaking out and doing that which you do for God.
My pleasure. Yeah, I was rescued by the Blessed Mother. Can't tell her no.
No, you can't. It's really hard to say no to mom at any point, isn't
Right,
there?
right. It is.
Oh, well, I'm going to go kind of really deep. So, I've mentioned to our listeners 26 years in the occult. You're kind of an average kid, and I've watched you on videos say that. I'm an average, nerdy kid. I think that's the word you used, right?
Right, right.
And so, tell us how you got into the occult. You didn't just one day say, hey, this looks like fun. Let me try it. You kind of was more subversive. You were practicing occultic things before you finally realized, hey, am I doing what I'm doing? Could you take us there?
Sure. I was curious about magic. I had watched a lot of movies. This was 1976. I'm 10 years old, and I had watched all these movies on TV. And, I just had a curiosity, is magic real? And I went to my Baptist preacher and to my parents, and I asked them, is magic real? Is this something you can really do? And not like Doug Henning or illusion,
Right.
can you do real magic? And my parents and the Baptist preacher told me no. Now, let me do a little sidebar here. There's about 33 verses in the Bible that speak out against magical things. If it was impossible to lie, thou shalt not lie wouldn't be in the Ten Commandments. Just like if it was
Right.
impossible to murder somebody, thou shalt not kill would not be in the Ten Commandments. So why would God tell you 33 times not to do something if you couldn't do it?
Good point.
However, the Baptist preacher and my parents, I guess, had not read those 33 verses. So they told me magic was fake. It was just things of movies. Nobody can really do it. So I thought if I could figure out something that I could do that adults don't think is possible, then I'm smarter than them. And I've got one up on them. That's got to help me in some way. So I started doing a magic spell for money. And the first time I did it, I found a can of tennis balls with a $5 bill in it. And I thought, that's pretty awesome, but could have been a coincidence. So
Right.
the next weekend, I did it again, found a $10 bill on the side of the road. And that's pretty cool too. I mean, this is 1976. The three things I'm interested in the most are candy bars, which are 20 cents, comic books that are 15 to 20 cents, and penny candy, which really is a penny. Now, that
Right.
same penny candy, to put that in perspective for people, those same pieces of candy now are 25 to 50 cents. Back then it was a penny.
Yeah.
So, you know, $5 and $10 can buy me a lot of that. But this could have been a coincidence. Now, at the same time as all that, when I was in the fifth grade, the first day of the fifth grade, this boy came up to me and he said, meet me in the bathroom at the first break. Well, the first break is at 10:20, and it's like a 15-minute break. And you're allowed to do whatever you want to do in 15 minutes. You can't leave the school campus, but you can go outside and play. You can take a break out in the sun. You can go to the cafeteria and get a milk. You can walk around to the other classrooms and meet your friends. You just have to be back in this classroom in 15 minutes. So I walked to the bathroom, and there was like 49 other kids in there. And this was a brand new building. So we had this new lighting system that it took a special key to turn off the light. Well, some child, as a genius, found that if you stuck a paperclip in there, you could turn off the light, turn it back on. So he said, we're going to turn off the light. We're going to chant this phrase about Bloody Mary X number of times. And if you do it right, the spirit of a burn victim will show up in the mirror. All right, we're game. Let's try that. So they turned off the light. We're in total darkness. We did the chant X number of times. And the scary, darkened, looked like a burn victim face, snarling, showed up in the mirror. 49 kids ran screaming out of the bathroom. One idiot, I can call him an idiot because it was me, stayed in there and watched this and thought, this is the coolest thing ever. I did this. I said this phrase. I said it the required number of times, and I made this face appear in the mirror. I'm going to do this every day.
Wow.
So I did at school. I did it every day until one day. Now, this was going all through the school. Every child, every classroom, everybody was into this. And some child, in a panic to leave the bathroom, got trampled. And I mean, like broken arm or broken leg. He got really badly injured. So notes were sent home. And I had to go to the den and give this note to my dad. And it said that if, kids have been caught playing this game, and if your child is caught, he'll be suspended for 3 days. And my dad, in his normal loving tone, asked me, have you been playing this game? No. Bring shame on the family, Dad. I would never do something like that. So I wouldn't bring shame on the family and keep doing it at school and get caught. I started doing it at home. Let's just bring the danger right inside the house.
Right.
So I was doing it, except when I did it at school, I did it once a day. Now when I'm doing it at home, I do it in the morning when I wake up. I go to the bathroom and do it again. After I brush my teeth, I do it again. I go have breakfast, I come back in, I brush my teeth again, so I do it again. Do it a couple more times before I leave for school. When I get back from school at the end of the day, my parents aren't home. So I do it when I walk in the door. I do it when I get a snack. I'm brushing my teeth in between my snacks, my meals. So every time I go to the bathroom, I'm doing
Can I
the
pause
chant.
you for a moment? So when you say you do it again, is it the same prayer, the same chant, and the same creepy looking guy in the mirror, or does it change each time you?
No, it seems to be the same person.
And you're just repeating it again. What was so attractive about seeing that burnt up face that you wanted to see it again and again, or was it just, I can keep doing this?
I can keep doing this. It was, I don't know if it's a spirit of a burn victim or who it is. They never talk to me. They look snarling as if their face was burned and like melted down over their teeth. So you could see partial their teeth. And they're a creepy looking person, but I mean, if you died in a fire and got burned up, you'd probably look creepy too.
Right.
You know?
So it wasn't the face that was attracting you. It was the fact that you were basically exercising this muscle, going, I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Was it like you're trying to convince yourself, this is me, I have this power because I keep doing it, this keeps happening?
Right. It's like, I can do it. Every time I do it, it works. I met other people, they said the same thing. Every time they do it, it works. And I've talked to people lately that say, no, it doesn't work. They've known some people that it works, some people it doesn't. And it's been in cartoons, it's been in movies, it's been in a couple of horror films.
Wow.
Some recently, as of like 2 or 3 years ago, it shows little girls chanting the chant and then lightning outside, and you can see when they run away that there's a girl that they couldn't see when they were standing there. Her reflection is in the mirror.
Wow. So these words, when you got these words, did someone give them to you? Did you chant different words each time?
No, it was the first kid that had us come in and meet him in the bathroom at the first break. He gave us the phrase to say. And then I just said, I stuck with the same phrase since it worked.
And we don't want to say that on the air anyway, because we don't want to get that right.
We don't want people to get curious and go find out. But
right.
in the Halloween store that's owned by Spencer's, that they put it out. There'll be a freestanding building every year at Halloween, possibly in your town, wherever you are. And it's called the Halloween store. You can go in there and they sell tens of thousands of costumes and makeup. They have an evil priest or an evil wizard, and that look is a high wizard. And they also have a mirror that you can buy. It's usually as soon as you walk in the store, it's on display. And you push a button on the mirror. And I think the regular price is $179.
Wow.
And the most recently that I've seen it, it was $99 on sale. And you push the button, and all of a sudden you hear a scream and a laugh, and a creature comes at you from a distance and comes right up to the face of the mirror. So like you're looking in the mirror and suddenly there's a creepy face right there. And it's the, I think it's called Bloody Mary game, or the Bloody Mary game.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's still popular now.
Yeah. Well, then continue. I apologize, but I needed to kind of fill that in. So you're doing this daily and regularly and millions of times. When did it...
Not quite millions,
okay.
But yes.
Yeah, that's my exaggeration. But when did it get to a point where now I want to do something else? I've got this power. I'm going to take it up another level.
Well, when I started doing the magic spell for money, then I thought, let's see if this is really magic. So I got money twice. And then I thought, let me take it up a notch and do the Bloody Mary chant. Then I'll do the spell for money. And then I'll finish out the Bloody Mary chant, and, we'll just see what happens. Maybe all of this is magic. Maybe none of it is. But maybe, I won $5 and I found $10. Let's see what I find once I do the Bloody Mary chant. So I did the Bloody Mary chant. The next day I went out to play. I'm 10 years old. And I went out and I found what looked like Monopoly money rolled up tight in rubber bands in a parking lot. So when I got home later that night, I've already taken my bath, I'm ready for bed. Everybody's gone to bed. And I'm in my room with a flashlight in my mouth and a sheet up over my head, unraveling these rubber bands to see what I have. And when I unraveled everything, it looked like Monopoly money because I'd never seen a $100 bill. And when I unraveled everything, I had 10 $100 bills.
Wow.
So now I know for a fact that magic works. This is real. This is something I can do. If I did this every day for the rest of my life and I got $1,000 each time, look how rich I would be. Like in 1 year, I could buy a Lamborghini. Now, I'm not looking at this from an adult perspective. I'm looking at it from a 10-year-old's perspective. I'm thinking I can buy a Lamborghini in 1 year. I'm not thinking, how do I tell my dad I'm now worth $220,000? My dad has to drive me to the Lamborghini store.
Right.
That means when my dad pays for the $220,000 Lamborghini, how do I get it home? My dad is going to have to drive my Lamborghini home.
Wow. Well, those are mature 10-year-old thoughts.
Well, they're my thoughts now.
Right.
I didn't think of those thoughts back then.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It wasn't occurring to me. All I was thinking of is I can buy a Lamborghini in a year. It wasn't occurring to me, how am I going to get it?
Right.
How am I going to get it home?
I don't
I
even
can't
have a
drive
license.
it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have a license. I can't drive till I'm 16. I'm going to have to get insurance on a Lamborghini. Oh my gosh. 16-year-old with a Lamborghini? Can you imagine the insurance premium on that?
Right.
I wasn't thinking of any of that. None of that thought came to me. Those are adult problems. I was 10 years old. I wasn't thinking of any of that.
Well, so take us, for the sake of time, take us to where this really became occultic, where you were participating in these meetings. I know that you didn't know that's what it was at first, and you had to ask somebody. And then, when you made this active choice to go, oh, I am? Okay, I'll keep doing it.
I was getting to do more than everything I ever wanted to do. Like my parents were the no police. I can't go to movies. I can't go to concerts. I can't go to plays. I can't go to musicals. I can't do anything. Anything I ask to do, the answer is no. Can I go see the Moody Blues in concert? No. There's a new movie that just came out. Can I go see it? No. I want to hang out with my friends on this day and do this. No. I tell people in my talks, if I'd have been a smart kid and I'd have wanted to get what I wanted to get for food, I should have told my parents that I wanted nothing to eat but vegetables because they'd have told me no and given me everything else, which would have been what I wanted.
That's true.
I'd have taken anything but vegetables. All I had to do was say that's all I wanted. My dad would have forbid me from having it. So I'm hanging out with this group that I was recruited by another kid that was my age. He used to play D&D when I was 10 years old.
Meaning Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons. And then he kind of disappeared from the scene. And then he came back into the scene and said that I hang out with a group now. They play D&D and they think magic is real. Well, I know magic is real, so I'm willing to go meet with them. I don't know what kind of group they are, but they play D&D. They can't be bad people, and we didn't see him anymore because he was being homeschooled and he just dropped off the scene. We didn't see him at all. And then suddenly he was back. His people let him go to school then. And, right. And we didn't know that he'd been homeschooled. And he worked for the Satanic Coven to recruit kids. And, so he tells me this and I go check them out. And, this is, if I want to have, like at my house, I got to have 3 meals a day and a snack if my mom's in a good mood. But over here, I can have potato chips all day long and Snicker bars, pizza every night if I want it. Whatever I want to eat, I can do. I also found out that after you have a big meal, if you have a cigarette, it feels great. Also, before you have a big meal, if you smoke some weed, then you'll get the munchies. And the food is so much better then. Even food you normally would not eat.
Like vegetables?
Like vegetables. Okra, fried okra is delicious when you have the munchies. So it's like, hey, that's cool. Or on the weekend, going on a camping trip, but dropping tabs of acid when you're out there. How good that feels. And everything you're seeing, how freaky it looks. Or if you take acid and ecstasy at the same time, it's called candy flipping. And it feels amazing. And how great that is to do that. Or how great it feels to combine so many drugs together. Or to get into a giant bowl that's filled with pills and you don't know what any of them are. And it's called a salad bowl. And you just choose one of the pills at random and see what happens. Does that give you crazy energy for 12 hours? And then you just fall asleep wherever you are? Or does it put you to sleep now? Or does it make you stoned? Does it make you feel drunk all day? Does it make everything seem brighter? What does it do? But you don't know. You just pick a pill at random and see. So, and then I'm also getting drunk on the weekends. Sometimes I would get drunk in the morning. It'd be like going to school and I would get like my mom would fix me an orange juice to take to school. So then I'd pour vodka in it and go to school with it. I'm in 7th grade. No one's getting drunk at school. No one's taking drugs. If it is, you know who it is. You can point out the bad kid. I'm not the bad kid. They know that I go to Baptist church at least on Sunday, sometimes on Friday, and sometimes on Saturday too. We have these little youth things going on all the time. So I'm constantly going to those. This satanic group told me to keep going, a pure normal. So, I'm still going to all that stuff. Everything, is happening as normal. And then one day, this older kid tells me, you're in a satanic coven, right? And he laughed and ran away. And I kind of laughed it off. But after about 2 or 3 weeks, it kind of bothered me. So I went up to an adult that I trusted and I said, hey, I heard something recently. You want to laugh? I heard this was a satanic coven. Crazy, right? And he said, it is. And I suddenly got scared because I'd seen all the movies. Rosemary's Baby, The Exorcist, those things are creepy,
Yeah.
And I'm like, am I a member? No. Would you like to be? So, this makes me think, I was smoking cigarettes almost every day. At that time, I think you had to be 18 to buy cigarettes. I'm 12.
Yeah.
I'm getting drunk almost every day. At that time, I think you had to be 19 to buy booze. I'm still 12. I am completely addicted to porn, watching it. And at this time, I was in pornography. And you have to be, I think, 18 to buy porn. I'm taking illegal drugs that I don't know where to get, except that I'm getting them through the Satanic coven. So if I quit this coven, I'm not going to have access to drugs anymore. And I'm having sex almost every day, but definitely on the weekends. And I'm starring in porno movies. I'm 12 years old. And they're letting me, it's kids my age and sometimes adults. And they're filming me. And all these girls belong to my coven. If I quit my coven, I'm going to lose all that. Everything I just described is stuff that I'm almost addicted to. I have to have it. I walk in the door at this place and I'm lighting up a cigarette, or I'm packing a bong and smoking it, or I'm going to the fridge and getting a beer, or I'm grabbing a girl by the hand and bringing her into a bedroom. These are like constants. I know this is something I can do every day. And if I quit, all of this goes bye-bye. I don't want to lose it. And God has a book that everything in it is thou shalt not. Thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, which is the same thing my parents do.
Right.
Thou shalt not. Now, God does give alternatives, though, but I didn't see it that way. And my parents didn't give alternatives. I got to put this out there as a warning for the parents. If you're going to shut your kids down, you got to give them an alternative.
Yeah, good point.
Their energy is going to go somewhere. Wouldn't you rather go somewhere where you lead it instead of letting them follow their friends blindly? That's the other issue with kids are curious. They're going to look stuff up. If they don't hear the answer from you because you're too shy to tell them,
yes,
or it's uncomfortable for you to talk about those subjects,
get over it.
Get over it, because they're going to find the answer. If you're not going to tell them where babies come from, they're going to look it up. And are they going to look it up on a medical website that may or may not have your perspective on it? Or are they going to look it up on a porn site? Most likely they're going to look up porn, because that does show people having sex trying to make a baby. Why isn't that the right way to look at? But you're too shy to talk to your kids about it, and then you're shocked when you find out they did it because you wouldn't give them the answer.
Yeah.
Or let's say they don't do that. Let's say they go to their friends who are just as stupid as they are, and they ask them, who may or may not show them porn, but how do you know they're going to give them a good Christian answer, or a good answer anyway? How do you know they're not just going to make something up and say it, and the kid thinks, oh, that sounds right, sure. That's how that works. Yeah. And it's not a good Catholic answer. It's not a good Christian answer, and it's not a good parental answer.
Yeah, so you're faced with all this group that's saying yes to everything. Everything's carnal, right. Everything's of the flesh. Everything is the things that we as young people, all we know is our flesh. And to train our spirit right. takes time. So your parents were thinking they were strengthening your spirit, even though they were, failing in those areas. So this is really competition. And your flesh was stronger than, this is the occult, but this is my flesh. So I'm going to let my flesh win, ultimately.
Right. Well, also, in my Baptist church, every sermon had to do with money.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what the sermon was, it had to do with money. You know, Jesus wept because he saw the state of the Baptist church and saw that the people didn't tithe enough money.
So funny, yeah.
You say that's funny. That was a
Well,
legitimate.
it
That was a
is, but
legitimate
yeah,
sermon,
it's funny.
and that was no matter what the sermon was, it was money. And then my dad would say things like, "If you tithe, God will reward you." But when you ask him if he tithes, he said no. And why doesn't he tithe? Because he can't afford to. If your business closes on Sunday, God will reward you. But his business was open 7 days a week. And when you ask him, why don't you close one day a week? I can't afford to. So he's telling me that God will reward me, but he doesn't trust God enough to do it.
Right.
So
He's
what am I
talking the talk, but he wasn't walking the walk.
what am I supposed to think if you're telling me one thing, but your actions say something else?
Yeah.
I'm going to believe your actions. You're telling me there's certain words I'm not supposed to use, but you use them. So you're telling me as long as I say it and you don't hear me, it's okay.
Yeah, so good note to parents. So you made the choice then, obviously, 26 years in the
Right.
occult. Did you consciously say, "Okay, I'm in," and where'd you go after that?
Well, what happens? What that day I said, "Am I a member?" And he said, "No. Would you like to be?" And I thought about it, and I said, "Yes. What do I have to do?" And he said, "There's 13 steps involved in becoming a Satanist, and you've done almost all of them already. All you have left to do, you have to slice your left thumb, bleed onto a document. The document says, 'The blood of Jesus washes away all sin, but not mine.' And I sign my name to that. 'Jesus died for everyone, but not me.' And I sign my name to that. And on the final page of a 5-page document, I agree to sell my soul to the devil. And I sign my name to that.
Wow.
Now, as a side note here, I'd like to bring up, just in case somebody thinks they've sold their soul to the devil, you can't sell what you don't own.
Praise God.
You know, I ask people in my talks, I usually have an assistant sitting next to me, and I ask that person what kind of car they own. And then when they tell me, I ask my audience, how many people here can legally sell me this person's car?
Right.
And nobody raises their hand. And I say, why not? And they said, because we don't own it. I said, right. That's the same reason you can't sell your soul. You know, God died for you. Jesus paid the ultimate price for your soul. You know, you don't own it. You can't lease it. You can't loan it. And you certainly can't sell it.
And that is such a good point to make, especially right here. So if someone's listening thinking, oh my gosh, I'm lost. I have a friend whose son, she recently found out that her son was into pornography. And she's like, I've lost his soul. And I said, no, you haven't. No, you can't lose his soul.
Right.
He's young. There's still time. And not until the day he dies does he make that decision with God. Is it going to be a battle? Absolutely. But you did not lose his soul.
You know, the bad thing about porn is that those images stay with you forever.
Ever.
It's like, I give an example of how long it lasts. When I was in college, I learned about quadratic equations, and I love them. I would put them up on the board. When I went to another college, I'd put them up on the board. We'd all be drinking. Everybody's drunk. And I have this large dry erase board in the room. And I would put a quadratic equation on the board. And if anybody could solve it, we would give them the money in the pot. Like everybody put $10 in and tried to solve it. Nobody could solve it. And at the end of the thing, then I'm pulling out $500 out of it and I solve it. And I could do the quadratic equation. I love them so much that I turned it into a gambling adventure, you know, and I did this all the way through the university. Now, I could not solve a quadratic equation to save my life. If you put one up on the board, I'd have no idea what to do. I know that there's a formula to it, but I don't remember what the formula is. So I can't remember how to do a quadratic equation that I learned when I was probably 20, and I used it to earn money on till I was in my mid-20s. Now that I'm in my mid-50s, I have no idea how to do them. You know what I can remember?
What?
My first image of porn that I saw when I was about maybe 7 or 8 years old. I didn't realize that's what it was, what I was looking at. And what I was looking at was a fake photo. Like you couldn't have done what it is that I was looking at. But I didn't know that. And I still remember that image
Yeah.
from being 7 or 8 years old. I found a magazine in a park and looked at it.
I have one person who I do not like brought a porn video to my house once and I didn't know what it was and put it in. And I remember the one scene, and that was 30 some years ago. I have never forgotten that scene. I have never forgotten what they said. And I've never seen another porn video or image. I'm not sure. I've probably seen porn images accidentally. Who knows? But I agree with what you're saying. And any boy, it might be girls too, but I know for sure boys who is exposed to porn prior to the age of 12, it actually rewires their brain. And so the brain starts craving, harder and harder stuff to satisfy it. I mean,
right. And it's like when you start off, you're starting off looking at naked images. And then after a while, it's like, that's not hard enough.
I want the naked images to do something.
Right. And then you want them to do something worse.
Right.
And then something worse. And it keeps getting.
Until there's nothing left, and that's how they have the
right.
deadly stuff. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and sometimes it's no matter how disgusting you think it is, you can't look away.
I know.
And people don't seem to get. The thing that people don't understand is that people do witchcraft spells, satanic spells over this porn that makes it addictive and makes it so that if you walk into a room and there's a good, wholesome quality image on the right and some kind of terrible porn on the left, your eyes are drawn to the left, even though the wholesome image might be holy. The unholy calls to you more.
How did you get into the porn? So you didn't know you were in the occult yet, but did they say, "Hey, come do this"? I mean, how about the girls? I know boys are way more willing than girls are. And you and I know that these connections now, but were you a young virgin and all of a sudden are like, "Hey, you want to have sex with this girl?" Or did she come on to you because she was already part of the coven? These are things I want other kids to be aware of.
When I was 11, I was the victim of a sexual assault at school at the hands of a female teacher that was a coven member, but I didn't have any idea of that at the time. And after she had sex with me, which was in the bathroom in school, she told me that that was my idea, that I wanted to do it, that I could have walked away, but I didn't. I participated.
They do that all the time. It makes me angry.
And I certainly enjoyed it. So if I tell anybody, I'll be in trouble. I'll be expelled from school. I'll go to prison. My parents will disinherit me. They'll disown me. And so I just had to keep quiet. Well, when I joined my satanic coven, actually before I joined officially, I was talking with all these people. I trusted them all. And so I told this one what happened to me when I was 11. And he said that what happened to me was terrible and that should have never happened to anyone. But now I have the chance to get my power back. Another lie of the devil, because we don't have any power.
Right.
I can do that anytime I want. No one can tell me no. And if somebody wants to do that with me and I want to say no, I can. I don't have to do it. And since they had already shown me magazines and movies, that was all porn, and all of it they were showing me was kids my age, they asked me what I like to do this kind of stuff. That there are people that like to look at this. Now, it wasn't occurring to me that adults would be looking at it. I just thought other kids, because I'm a kid and I'm looking at it. And there's other kids in the room and they're all looking at it. So I just thought that if I was in the movies or in the magazines, that other kids would see it. I was like, yeah, I'm fine with that. So they got me involved in that, and they had me go to there's these three sisters that were Satanists. One was 8, one was 11, and one was 14. And they had the 8-year-old start me off and learn how to do stuff. And then the 11-year-old taught me more stuff. And then the 14-year-old taught me more stuff. And when she was done, then they said I was ready to appear in porn.
Oh my gosh, that
Well,
makes
they didn't call it porn. They call it you're ready to appear in movies.
Right. Wow.
So I'm
And all this
appearing.
time, your parents had no idea. I mean, when were you doing this? After school? Were you doing this during school? Were you skipping school? And
I
then and
didn't.
going to Baptist church on Sunday?
I didn't skip school because I wanted to be the good kid. So I wanted them to. When you're looking for the bad kid in school, you can always spot him. He's the kid with the long hair that dresses different than everybody else.
Right.
He's got a rock and roll T-shirt and ripped jeans and
Smart mouthing to the teacher if
smart
and when he
mouth and
shows up to
everybody.
school.
Right. He might show up every day and he might not. And I'm there every day and I'm dressed nice and I study and I make decent grades. And after school, I quickly blast through my homework, sometimes even at school. I'm done with my homework while I'm at school. And then when I go home, all my homework's done, so I go out to play. But instead, I go over to these meetings and we film porn or shoot still pictures, or, I'll get drunk and do something, or I'll smoke a bong and then, shoot a film for 2 or 3 hours.
Do you mind me asking? So, and you don't have to give any details you don't want, but I'm going to go as deep as I can. Because this happens all over America, sadly. I mean, so where were you? Were you in a scuzzy neighborhood, good neighborhood? How far did you have to go to find this house? How could I find a house like this if it's in my neighborhood? What do I look for? Is this even possible? I mean, there are parents probably watching this going, how on earth? What does it look like? How are there signs?
Back when I was doing it, we had a fence around the yard, and it was a decent house in a decent neighborhood. I
In
mean,
a Midwest city.
I lived in Florida, and I lived in South Florida, and South Central, and my section of town, the northwest side of town, was the affluent section of town.
Wow.
That's where I lived. And I would stay in that neighborhood when I would walk to this house. It
You
was
think that there's this false sense of safety then in terms of the neighborhood going, oh, our neighborhood's a good neighborhood, so I have less to worry about? And do you think that actually helped add to the problem?
I think so, because we lived, this was in the 70s. This was at a time when everybody in town knew everybody in town. So you knew, like you would hear that a group of kids were spotted under the bleachers smoking cigarettes. And all the parents knew all the names of all the kids.
All the kids, right.
So I knew not to hang out with those kids because I don't want word to get back to my parents that I'm smoking cigarettes.
Right.
If my dad ever said, you smell like cigarettes, well, the guy I was hanging out with was smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke. Once again, my dad smoked cigars like he was a chimney and is telling me not to smoke.
Yeah.
My dad drinks beer and he tells me not to drink beer. He's also drinking whiskey. He's telling me not to drink whiskey.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything he's telling me not to do, he does.
I was going to ask you this question towards the end of the show, but I just think it's so appropriate to ask you now. What is your relationship like with your parents now? And did they ever find out what was going on? And I mean, do they feel any remorse or guilt? And I'll say in front of all my viewers, you never have to answer anything that you don't want, because I don't want to get too intimate if there's a subject that's still private. But what is that?
Me and my dad butted heads until the final 2 years of his life. And then we made up. It was we had an argument one day. And at the end of the argument, I said, I love you dearly, but you make it very hard to like you. And he looked at me and he said, he thought about what I said. And he said, likewise, I'm sure. And we shook hands and never fought again. Like we got along.
Were you still in the coven?
No. No. I had converted in 2008, and this was 2014. Oh no, this was 2012. He passed away in 2014.
So did he know you
So
were an occult, a satanic high wizard?
no, he knew that I was involved in something bad that I shouldn't be involved in, but he didn't know how to approach me and ask me. And we'd been apart for a while, so he didn't know even how to approach me to say hello.
How did he know? What was he seeing? What made him think that?
I got so that I wasn't doing so well in school. And he took me out of public school and put me in private. And I got kicked out of 2 private schools. And then the 3rd private school I got along with. I was fine in that one. And there were actually coven members in that one. And so I got along fine with them.
Did your
But
mom know?
no. And then my mother, her last 12 years of life, she had Lewy body dementia. So it's a form of Parkinson's disease. And me and my wife at the time took care of her for the last 6 years of her life, or 6.5 years. So she was so far gone, she didn't even know who I was. I called her by her name because I called her mom one time and she said, "Who's your mother?"
Oh.
And then when I said, "You are," she started crying and talking about how lonely I must have been never having had her as my mother, because she couldn't remember me.
Oh.
And so I could never call her mom again after that. You know that she was, like I said, she had dementia, and we moved my mom and my dad into a different town and put them in a new home. And me and my wife hadn't moved in with her yet. And so I still had a secular job. And my dad let me know that my mom got out of the house twice. Like, we had told him to change the locks, put a deadbolt on there that takes a key and then lock it. Otherwise she's going to walk around. You're not going to be able to find her. Well, my dad believed that she was faking it. She didn't really have dementia. She was doing this to aggravate him.
Yeah.
Even though she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease and she's shaking all the time and she's hallucinating, and he still doesn't believe that any of this is real. So she would go twice. She got picked up by the sheriff's department and brought back home. And when they would pick her up, you can't just take her and throw her in the car. It has to be their idea. So they asked her what she was looking for. And she said she was looking for a Catholic church. So they told her, "Oh, we'll take you to one." They put her in the car and take her back home. By the time she gets home, she doesn't remember
what she was looking for. Yeah.
what she was looking for. So, but by doing that, like, me and my wife were going to Catholic church every day. And so we told our priest that, and he said, "Well, why does she think she's Catholic?" And I said, "Well, she grew up Catholic. She had all the sacraments but marriage, and then she converted to being Baptist so she could marry my dad. And she married my dad when she was 17. So she had gone to Catholic church for 17 years and then converted to marry my dad. Well, now she thinks she's forgotten that she's Baptist. She thinks she's Catholic. So the Baptist priest, the Catholic priest, he said, "Well, go ahead and bring her. She thinks she's Catholic. God would recognize her as Catholic. She just can't take the Eucharist." Like, that's great. So we started bringing her to daily mass with us. And, everybody fell in love with my mother. She's this really short Puerto Rican lady. She's got a fiery personality. She's quick to smile. And she'll talk to anybody that comes up and talks to her. And we heard, that we might be able to get her absolution. And we didn't know if that was true or not. But we went out back and we talked to Father Bradis. And Father Bradis was the happiest man alive. Like, he was happy all the time. And he would hear your confession. It didn't matter where you were if you asked him for confession. I've been in Walmart and seen Father Bradis from a distance. And I started to walk over to him. And then I saw that there was a guy on his knees in front of him receiving absolution. And I thought, oh, I'll leave him alone. So, it was like, hearing somebody's confession in Walmart, I was like, wow, you go, Father Bradis.
What a beautiful sign of his ministry.
Right. So when Father Bradis passed away, he died when he was 84 years old. He became a priest when he was 20.
Wow.
He'd been a priest for 64 years when he passed away.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. So anyway, we went out the back of the church. It was me and my wife, and we were talking to Father Bradis. We said, is there a way we could get my mother absolution? And he says, well, she would have to have a moment of lucidity and clarity where she knows what we're talking about. And if that happens, I can give her absolution. Well, I was kind of like crestfallen because I kind of doubted that the same God that put me in the place to be converted, I doubted could make my mother lucid. She hasn't known who I was for 6 years. How's she suddenly going to become lucid enough to have a conversation about the Eucharist? God could do that. But I'm not thinking anybody can do this. So me and Father Bradis and my wife walk out the back door. And my mother's sitting in a wheelchair talking to like 3 or 4 friends. And Father Bradis walks up to her and she smiles real big. She always smiles when she sees a priest. And he says, Anna, we're going to see if we can get you to take the Eucharist again soon. And she smiled even bigger. And she said, that would be wonderful. It's been such a long time. And he gave her the sign of the cross and he said, good enough for me.
Oh.
So
she died with last rites and an absolution.
Yes. And we got her the Eucharist probably 3 times in her life, after she got absolution.
Wow. That's awesome. I would like to hear so much more, but my mind keeps going keep going in depth to, I want to get to some other.
Well, let me tell you one more story about Father
Please.
Bradis. You can edit it out later if you want to.
Not going to.
Father Bradis was dying, I think, of like pancreatic cancer or stomach cancer. I think. And don't quote me on those. But that man loved to eat. He was a tiny man. He was very thin. But you could take him to Perkins or some other restaurant and he owned that place.
Yeah.
He would have like 9 different dishes.
Throw down some chicken, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that man loved to eat. So finally he got so that he didn't love to eat.
Oh.
And he was living at the rectory, and Father Cooney, who has since then passed, told him, we can no longer help you. You need to go to hospice. Hospice will be here tomorrow, and they're wonderful people. They will take good care of you. And he said, thanks, but I'm not going. He goes, well, Father, I'm not going to argue with you. They'll be here at 9 a.m. That's nice, but I'm not going. He goes, okay, Father. Well, I'm not going to argue with you, but they'll be here at 9 a.m. I'll come in before then and make sure you're ready. Thanks for your concern. I'm not going. He goes, okay. Well, Father Cooney left him alone. In the morning, he went to wake up Father Bradis so he could be ready to go.
And he was dead, wasn't he?
He was dead.
What a gift of God.
And he realizes then that Father Bradis wasn't arguing with him, that he was just telling him the truth. That probably Mary came to him and said, I'm claiming you during the night. And he said, okay, I'm ready to go.
What an honor.
But he couldn't tell Father Cooney that.
Wow.
He just had to say, thanks, but I'm not going.
Wow. You know, to think that you could be such a person that the Lord or his mother would talk to you in such an intimate way. I mean, right there, you just want to get to know that person more and go, what an honor to live that kind of a life that you could be seen worthy of something like that, you know?
Right.
And then, we're talking about your life today, 26 years as a satanic high wizard. I'm sure you've had some moments of, wow, Lord, you love me. You still love me, and in case you do have one of those thoughts, I just want to remind you, oh, he so loves you and he's so grateful because everything you've done from that day behind is gone as far as east is from west. So when Satan does try to come and remind you of your past, let my words encourage you that, he does not have power. And you know this, but I'm just giving you a second voice. You are so forgiven. God is so proud of what you are doing for him now. So I'm grateful. And just coming on my show and other shows to tell people truth and warn parents how not to let their kids get into it, and what to do if you do find out somebody you know or love is in a coven. What can we do? And never, 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 never lose hope. So
Right.
let's go back. Zachary, my guest today, as you guys already know, is Zachary King. He's a former satanic high wizard. He had been for 26 years, taken place in numerous ritual abortions. And then he had a moment, which we're not going to get to quite yet, with a miraculous medal and converted him. But let's go a little bit more into the occult. So you mentioned to me when you and I had first spoken about those satanic ritualistic abortions. So I hear a lot of speakers. Father Chad Ripperger, he's one of the probably the most well-known Catholic exorcist.
Right.
And he talks about the connection between Satanism and
Oh, I mean, if you
and
can
abortion, Satanism and
find,
homosexuality. Take us into your life as a Satanist. And for instance, it seems everything that they did went slowly, like, oh, you're just doing this, this, and this. Did they
right.
say to you, hey, we're going to abort this baby and we're going to offer it up to Satan? I mean, kind of take us to some of those rituals. And I do want to say what my friend Christine Watkins taught me. I cover this whole conversation in the blood of the Lamb, everything that's been spoken and will be spoken, because we will not give Satan any stronghold on this show. So, speak only what you're speaking in terms of teaching people. What happened? How did you get to, all right, or how did you get to Satanic High Wizard?
That happened in the second coven I was in. And I had become a high wizard when I was 21 and stopped when I was 33. So I was a high wizard. I was in Satanism for 26 years. I was a high wizard for 12.
Wow.
I don't know if you've heard me talk about being in a satanic coven or working for the Illuminati is like working for a candy store.
No, I have not. And then if you could differentiate at some point the difference between Illuminati and the covens, we do that as well.
The Illuminati they use the satanic covens to get what they want. And they use musicians, they make people famous, and then people see that and they want to become famous. And they know that if they can get involved in the Illuminati, they can become famous too. So they're a satanic organization, but they're not a satanic coven. And they work with the government, actors, actresses, musicians, pretty much anybody that's got lots of money and wants to move Satan's agenda forward, like a George Soros type person.
Right.
Somebody that wants to move Satan's agenda forward, that's what they're there for. They know the right buttons to push or the right levers to pull to make things happen. And then they use satanic covens to help with this, and they use high wizards.
Wow. Okay. So they're all satanic in some way.
They're all satanic, right?
Right. Okay. Okay, so so you're rising up. Tell us about, the day in the life of someone who's satanic or in a coven.
Well,
How often are you doing? You said 26 ritual abortions. Is that because it was one a year, or
no, it was,
what does that look like?
I've done 146
Oh, okay.
ritual abortions, but they're assisted abortions. So my job, I tell people that everybody that works in Planned Parenthood is culpable for the abortion. The abortion doctor is culpable. So's the nurse that works with him. even though she's not doing the abortion. The front desk clerk, the guard out in the parking lot, even to some extent, the people that manicure their lawns or that redo their roof, you're enabling them to do the things that they're doing. You, even the people that are out there that mow their grass, you're making the place look good. Like it's not an evil place. It's not it's not a sanctuary of death. It's not a death camp. It isn't a place to fear.
Yeah, plant some pretty flowers and put a nice
Right.
sign on it and make it look happy.
Right. According to Planned Parenthood, I got interviewed a few years ago because there was an art project, I think in New York, where somebody put up a temple of Baal. I don't know if you remember that happening.
In D.C., I thought, right? Was it D.C.?
It could have been D.C. I thought one was in New York. There could have been more than one.
There might have been more than one, but I do know that they did one in D.C.
But it was a temple of Baal. And they asked me what I thought of there being a temple of Baal and how upset are people getting. What's my opinion of people being upset? And I said, I don't know why people are upset about this temple of Baal, since we've had 865 temples of Baal in the United States for quite some time.
Yeah.
And no one complains about those. And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, what was the temple of Baal used for? You sacrificed children to it. Where we have 865 Planned Parenthoods in the United States. Now that's just Planned Parenthood in the United States, because Planned Parenthood's all over the world.
Right.
And there's also other abortion clinics in the United States and around the world. So let's say there's 1,000. So you have 1,000 temples of Baal, and you're upset because of one or two.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I'm sure they roll their eyes and think, oh, people will allow themselves to be blind. Oh, well, that's not the same. And then they'll move on.
Well, according to Planned Parenthood, the average abortion clinic, I think, kills 1,500 babies a year.
No. 1,500? It's more like 15,000.
No, it's 1,500 each. There's 865 of them.
Oh, okay. Right.
So 1,500 each times 865.
Yeah.
They get on average $800 per abortion. That means they're making about $1 billion a year per abortion clinic.
Just killing babies.
That's $865 billion a year just in abortions. Then on top of that, the government gives them $365 million.
That makes me so angry. That's so angry. So how did you, as a satanic high wizard, how did you take part in these ritualist abortions? Did you go to Planned Parenthood? You said to me that these women would give you permission. Did they realize it was part of a satanic?
Yes.
Tell me, kind of take me there.
A lot of the women that do this are called breeders.
Mm-hmm.
They intentionally get pregnant so they can have an abortion. And they know that if they get X number of them, then they're given favor by Satan. They might be looking for a higher position, a higher ranking, higher status, more land, more money, the perfect husband. They're looking for something. And they know if they sacrifice their babies, God will, or Satan, their God, will grant favor to them.
So where do they go? Do you meet them at a clinic, or do you just go to their house? Who does it? Are you saying satanic prayers when this happens? What's it look like?
In the first one I did, the first one is probably the most famous because I've said it in a few interviews where I've gone into detail. I'll spare your audience the detail, but I'm in a room with 150 people. It's a very large farmhouse. There's a bunch of men chanting and saying incantations to keep God at bay and to make sure no police show up to shut us down. There's a bunch of women nude on the floor chanting. They're on their knees and they're chanting our bodies ourselves. There's 13 high priests and priestesses around an abortion table, and there's a woman laying in that with her feet up in stirrups, And I'm standing there. I'm 14 years old. I'm wearing a red robe with a black pentagram on it, or an inverted pentagram. And I'm wearing surgical gloves and a surgical mask. And I'm there with a doctor and a nurse, and they've got all their equipment there. And then all I have to do is get blood on my hands, whether it's the baby's blood or the mother's blood. And then I do that. That's my portion. And all I did pretty much was put my hands down there and get blood on them. And then the doctor performed a late term abortion and then tore the baby apart and threw it out to the women on the floor.
Tore the baby apart after he or she came out so people could see it.
Well, it was a late term abortion. So
yeah,
the baby has to be partially delivered and then they do the abortion. And then he tore the baby apart with these like tools that had teeth on them and threw the parts out to the women on the floor.
What did they do?
They cannibalized it.
Oh my gosh.
Now that was my first one. I did 146 total. Not all of them went that direction. And some of them were just scraping out tissue. You know, where you look at it and you think that's not a baby.
Yeah.
At least when you're a Satanist, you think that. You know, my dad used to talk about people talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I never understood what he meant until David Daleiden came out with his 8 secret Planned Parenthood videos. And out of one side of their mouth, Planned Parenthood says, it's not a baby, it's just some cells. You're just scraping some cells out of a lady's body. But out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying they're selling baby body parts. They're selling a brain and lungs and a liver and kidneys and a heart. How can you sell baby body parts out of something that's not a baby? You can't.
Or that's not formed.
Right, that's impossible. You can't do that. You have to be selling baby body parts out of a baby. And then I understood what talking out of both sides of your mouth meant.
How did this change you? So you're 14 when you saw this first one. Did you get mean and ugly and nasty? And it had to change you. It had to change you. Did you start getting accepting of it? Did it start eating you up? Take me on this transformation of Zachary King, the 10-year-old boy, Baptist little churchgoer, to this satanic high wizard who's watching babies get ripped out of their mother intentionally and cannibalized.
I think at some point, I never thought of myself as the bad guy. I still like to make people laugh.
Yeah.
If I could have been the class clown and been the high wizard, I would have done it. You know, I like to be the life of the party. I had a good time with everything I did, but after a while, you know, how many abortions can you do before you feel like you don't have any feeling anymore? Like you watch a movie and people die, and maybe at one time it used to bother you. Now it doesn't. You know, now watching a movie about the Holocaust is boring.
It's like that pornography you talked about earlier.
Right. Right. You have become desensitized to everything you're seeing. So much to the point that not only does nothing bother you, like if you won the Powerball or your house burned down,
you're dead.
You'd be like, yeah. You're like, oh, now look what's happened. You know, it was like no big deal. You know, when I talk about the candy store, I say that, you know, there's tens of thousands of candy in this. Now, not like a candy store in the mall, but a freestanding building. When you walk in there, it's wall-to-wall candy. It smells amazing. And your first day on the job, you're wondering, how long is it going to take me to try every piece? Now, not the licorice, because nobody wants that, but how long is it going to take me to do every sin that I'm allowed to do? Not some sins, because they're disgusting. Well, you find out in 6 months, you've had every piece of candy that you wanted to have. And after a year, you've had the licorice too. So even the sins you said are disgusting that you would never do, you've done. And after 3 years, you wonder, how come my boss can't create new sin? How come there's nothing new on the horizon? And then suddenly a new drug comes out. It's a new candy bar. And you rip open that candy bar and you realize, no, it's the same candy. It's just in a different wrapper. You smoke crack cocaine for the first time and you're all excited because there's a new drug on the market. And then you realize, wait a minute, this is still cocaine. There's nothing new.
Yeah.
A new way to take it, but it's still the same drug.
Because Satan can't create anything. He just takes
Right.
what God already created and he just keeps reshuffling it.
Right, and perverting it, changing it to fit him. So, when you first started to the candy store, there were yellow lights shining on yellow wrappers and blue lights on blue wrappers and red lights on red wrappers. And you thought the person that invented that idea was a genius. And the floor has red and white tiles and they're bright and shiny. And the wall has those same tiles and it looks brand new. I mean, you find out the candy store has been there for 15 years and you're shocked because the store looks brand new. But then after 7 years, you can't get those tiles shiny anymore.
Right.
They're dull. Those lights that shine on those different colored wrappers are nauseating. It's disgusting. You've got to go do another abortion. You don't want to do it, not because of any moral situation. This is not a moral conundrum for you. This is not like a quizzical thing. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing a wrong thing? It's just boring. Now I have to go do another one. When I used to do them, I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Now I've just got to go do a job.
Yeah, and I would guess that they aroused you to a degree as a child, not necessarily sexually aroused you, but some kind of arousal as you're speaking of. And then, so the arousal is no longer there. The satiation is, you're not sated as you would have been. I had heard an interview with Ted Bundy he did with Dr. James Dobson the night before he was given the death penalty. And he said, everybody who gets into porn doesn't get into jail, but everybody on death doesn't get on death row, but everybody on death row 100% has started out in porn. And it would seem these things are inextricably attached in the satanic stuff you're talking about as well. So he mentioned all the things that you said. It's just, you have to get worse and worse and worse in order to sate your own appetites, I would say. Was there ever, I recently read about a young woman, she left Planned Parenthood and she's now part of Speaking For And Then There Was None, which is an organization from Abby Johnson. And she's called a quitter. She quit it. Now she's speaking against the evils of Planned Parenthood. And her moment of truth was when a woman aborted quadruplets, natural quadruplets, and she saw the babies fall out of the mother's up from between her legs as she walked, and pretty traumatic. And she's going to be on my show soon. But amidst all that evil and the the desensitization that was taking place for you, did you ever have a moment like that where, we're not getting to the Miraculous Medal yet, but a moment where something happened and kind of was jarring? Or after that first one where you saw a baby come out whole and cannibalized, could nothing be worse? Did you have any of those moments, or, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
In the first one I did, I'd been told that in the womb was fine and out of the womb was murder. So it was kind of a slight conundrum for me because they delivered most of the baby and left the head inside, which meant that it was a legal abortion. But I'd been told that it was just a lump of cells. And you can see that it's not a lump of cells. It's an actual human being. So it was kind of like I was lied to, but I'm caught up and I'm in it, and I don't want to say no. You know, I don't want to say I'd rather not do this. I mean, I weighed every decision, at least early on, with me losing everything that I was given. And I didn't want to lose it all. Is there a way I can do this where I can be a Satanist but not do these abortions?
Right.
And just participate in the sex.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll, and leave the abortion for somebody else. You know, but they said that I got the Satan's attention and his favor by doing these abortions. And I wanted Satan's favor and attention.
I'm not going to ask you. Well, I'm going to ask you, but you know, again, we're on film, so I never want you to say anything that can't be said. And I'm not doing anything to sensationalize. Here's what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing this interview. I am Catholic, devout, love the Lord. My children were raised in a Catholic school, Catholic education by devout parents. We weren't just the people who talked the talk. We walked the walk. And yet my daughters have been like, I don't know if Satan exists. And so I'm saying this because I need people to know how real this is. Sadly, I'm in here with my own family saying, I need you to know this stuff is real and this stuff really happens. And this isn't just your crazy mom. So that's why when I ask deeper questions, Zachary, it's certainly not to sensationalize. So stop me if there's any question. But we talk about abortions. I have heard too, and you've never said any of this to me, but I'm asking, adult murders. I know that like with the mafia, they have to get worse and worse and worse. Have you known of, or, you know, again, I don't need you to say if you've taken part in, for the sake of, I don't want you to incriminate yourself, but do you know if that's also a part of it, is killing adults and doing any kind of ceremonies or on live human beings as well?
There's other satanic covens around the world that do that. You know, there's people that are involved in Santeria. And for your audience that doesn't know, Santeria combines voodoo with Catholicism.
Yeah, there's a lot of it down in Mexico, I know.
Mexico and Brazil, South America.
Yeah.
And their Santeria cults, they do a lot of, they don't do abortions, they murder adults. Yeah. And people that practice voodoo and Santeria believe that you can, if you capture somebody's heart while it's still beating, you've captured their soul.
Wow.
And the bad news to that person is they died for nothing, because you can't capture somebody's soul.
Yeah. Let's go to the good stuff. You're doing this for 26 years. You're numb. You have no more emotion. You know, like you said, you're dead on the inside and no more affect. But then you became a Catholic. There had to be a powerful story that, how on earth could this happen? Apart from God is God, and he wanted you from the beginning.
Right. Well, I was married, and me and my wife were looking for a church to belong to. We weren't going to any churches. We were just kind of researching them. Because when I was 8 years old, me and my brother came out of church one day, and my dad asked me what we did today during church. Well, me and my brother colored a picture. Well, that wasn't holy enough for my dad. So he started taking us around to all the churches, all the Protestant churches in town for the summer. Like every Sunday we would go to a different church. And then he found out that every Sunday we would color a picture, play connect the dots, play a crossword, play find a word. It was always the same. We were children, so this is what we're going to do. So he realized that well, we all do the same thing at the same age. I might as well take you back to the Baptist church because at least you know them. You've been there since you were in diapers. So he never took me to the Catholic church. And when I was 8 years old, I was in the third grade, and I would walk home and he would give me a ride to school every day. And I would pass a Catholic church both ways. And I would see this church has a crucifix on it instead of a cross. They have a big bell that we would hear ring like 4 times a day. There was stained glass windows, same as we had in the Baptist church.
Right.
And sometimes there were people standing outside, women and men, but I couldn't tell who was married to who. Because in the Baptist church, the pastor wore a black or a blue suit and was married to a woman wearing a flowery dress. Well, here there was women dressed in brown, black, or blue dresses that went from the top of their head down to their feet. And then there were men who looked like sometimes they were dressed in a suit, and sometimes they were dressed in foot pajamas.
In what?
Foot pajamas.
Oh, foot pajamas. Okay.
I had never seen a cassock. I didn't know what that was. So I thought the cassock was foot pajamas.
Okay.
So, because they're wearing black clothes that go all the way down to their ankles, and then there's black shoes. That looks like foot pajamas to a kid. So, one day, I saw this nun standing outside, and she looked like love. If you looked up love in the dictionary, her picture would be there. So I ran up, gave her a hug. She knelt down and hugged me back. A really long hug, and I looked up. My friends were way off in the distance. So I tore apart from her and ran off to be with them. The next day, my dad's giving me a ride to school, and we're passing this church. And I was like, Dad, what is that? And he's like, Catholics. You can read the sign. I'm 8 years old. What's a Catholic? It doesn't matter. They're all going to hell.
Of course they are. Yeah.
So I knew all the Catholics were going to hell, so I can't go to the Catholic church. I never met a Holy Baptist church. So there was no Baptist church to go to. If the devil is not attacking your church, why on earth would you belong to it?
Yes. Yes.
So the devil's not attacking any other Protestant denomination. He stopped attacking the Baptists in the 90s because he watered down their faith. So who's left?
Right.
The only satanic attack I hear is to the Catholics, and I don't understand why, because my dad said they're all going to hell. My ex-wife, who was my wife at the time, she belonged to the Jehovah's Witnesses, so she belonged to a cult.
She belonged to the what?
She belonged to the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're a cult. So, I mean, they don't even believe Jesus is God. So they actually believe that Jesus and St. Michael the Archangel are the same person. So there's no church to belong to. Can't belong to the Catholics since they're all going to hell. Can't belong to any Protestant denomination because they're not attacked by the devil. Who do I join? She didn't know, and I didn't know. And so I just prayed that God would direct somebody to me that would lead me in the right direction.
Well, hold on a minute. How, if you're in a coven, how did you pray to God that God would lead you?
I came out of the coven in 1999.
Why?
Because I was tired of what I was seeing, and I knew that the only way I could escape was to die. I could commit suicide, I could be killed, or I could die of natural causes. And all 3 solutions end me with ending up in hell.
Right.
I didn't want to go to hell. So I just knew I had to escape. So I plotted my escape for a long time. I slowly pilfered money out of my account. It wasn't very much, but it was enough so that I could live when I left. I had a lot of credit cards. I cut them all up on the way. I just did everything that I thought I wanted to live off the grid for a while. I was trying to get into Canada for some reason. I don't know why. This time, I don't know why. I tried and I got rejected. I tried again,
You tried to do what? I want to make sure I heard.
trying to get into Canada.
Into Canada, and you got rejected. Okay.
Right, I got rejected at the border, and I tried again, and I got rejected at the border, and I ended up going to they when they rejected me, they told me I could go anywhere I wanted. So I kind of closed my eyes. I did the Protestant thing, where they open the Bible and put their finger down and see what God
Bible
wants.
roulette.
Yes. So I did that with a United States Atlas to see where I was going to go. And my hand landed on Oklahoma. So I got a ticket to Oklahoma. And I lived there for about 3 years, a little bit of the time off the grid, some of the time on the grid.
You're still single.
I'm single. I bought a car and tried to get a ride, tried to drive to Canada, got rejected again. And then I found out there was a border crossing where there was no border guard. So I was like, great, I'm going that way. So I was heading that way. And on the way there, I got super sleepy. I was only 2 hours away from the crossing. I got super sleepy. So I pulled over at a rest stop and I took a break. I was going to take a nap for a couple of hours. But it turned out that when I woke up, it was the next day. It was in the morning. So I thought, no big deal. I'm only 2 hours away. I'm going to drive that way. So when I went to cross the border, there was a border guard there that pulled me over. And so he pulled me over and searched my car inside and out, top to bottom. While he's doing that, he's telling me that this is his very first day on the job. He's been trying to get this job for 3 years. And I'm the first person to cross over the border while he's on the job. And I thought, you know, if I'd have done this yesterday, I'd be in
Right.
Canada right now.
Right.
God's got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I got rejected at the border, and I had $18 and half a tank of gas.
Oh, you got rejected even with this young this young patrolman?
Yeah,
He rejected you as well.
yeah. So $18 and half a tank of gas. I drove to Burlington, Vermont. And I got a job the first day in town. I got into the homeless program. And I got a job at a place called Nectar's. And it was a venue spot with a restaurant and a bar. So I got it. My first job there was a dishwasher. And then I got a job as a doorman, which there is basically a bouncer. And then I got a job as head of security. And then I left there and went to a Polynesian restaurant called Kahiki Moon. And I started out as head of security.
But hold on. So this whole time, I'm just a little bit confused how, okay, I'm involved so deeply in the occult and you just got bored of it, sick of it. I would think that they'd chase after you and try to kill you. And I know you said you snuck out, but did you have a God moment while in there? I mean, at this point, when you left the occult, did you believe God existed?
Oh, I totally believed in God.
The whole time?
You're a Baptist. I believed in God.
Which is kind of weird for people to hear. I'm practicing the occult, though I believe in God. So Satan worshipers don't not believe in God. They just believe that they have more power or want power.
It depends on the coven you belong to. Some covens are theistic. They believe in God. And some covens are atheistic. They don't believe in God. Like the Satanic temple that worship the Baphomet statue. They don't really believe in the devil. And they don't believe in God. They're atheistic. And they believe in the idea of hedonism.
Right.
Do
So
what
you did
want.
too.
You do it. But I was theistic.
So you believed in God. You were
believe-
sick of this. I'm not making this connection to, the only way you can leave the coven is if you're dead, you kill yourself, someone kills you. I know you sneak out, and you were plotting it. So was God getting a grip on your heart, or in this period were you still not yet worshiping God? You were definitely didn't want to worship Satan at this point, but
I was fine with worshiping Satan I didn't want to belong to an organized satanic coven.
So you're still worshiping Satan when you're going through Canada or trying to find it and get into Vermont and all that.
Right. So many covens are connected. My first coven had 120 to 150 members. My second coven had over 1 million members worldwide. So many covens are connected, and you're liable to belong to one and then find out you're connected to this other one. So I didn't want to suddenly show up at a coven and have them find out that, or have, me find out that they're connected to World Church of Satan. And that's where I used to be the High Wizard.
So you just left, still practicing Satanism, or at least praying to Satan, and you just went to Vermont. And were you looking for God at any point? Looking for a church? So, okay, take us there then. So you've gotten all these jobs, and
Right. So then I got a job as head of security and then GM of a bar. And then I went from that into retail. And I was manager in training at Finish Line, and then a manager at Sunglass Hut. And then I became a manager at Piercing Pagoda. And before all that, I was practicing magic all the time. I got married during that time, and that was 2007. October 2007, I got married. And my wife, like I said, had been a Jehovah's Witness, and she was totally eating up all the magic and mysticism that I knew how to do. Like, she just thought that was the coolest thing. Me saging. She was the manager of Spencer's, and I was the manager of Sunglass Hut. And she was having some creepy stuff happen in her store. So I came in to sage her office or her entire store, which is
right.
kind of like
It's a pagan kind of ritual.
Pagan ritual that kind of like draws more demons to you. Cleansing an area, if you're not cleansing it with a Catholic priest,
you're infesting it.
You're infesting it. That is correct.
And that's what you did.
Really infesting her workplace with more demons, but she thought I was cleaning it.
Well, for the sake of time, kind of move us to that time, only because I would like to get more details, but I realize we've been talking for an hour and a half and I could talk to you for hours, days. So to kind of move us ahead to this moment where God is God and you want to worship God. You become Catholic or whatever that happens for second or third.
Well, I'm a manager at Piercing Pagoda, and I'm practicing magic. I did a magic spell the night before, and this woman comes up to my store, and she wants to buy a pair of gold hoop earrings, and I sell her what I think is the perfect pair, and I'm about to close the deal. And then she says, well, actually, I'm shopping with my daughter, and I'm going to continue that, and when I come back, I'll buy them. And she walked away. And I know I can, I'm a retail manager. I can speak woman speak.
Yeah.
When a woman says that, she means I'm going to keep her someplace else, and I'm going to do that, and I'll never see you again. But she had an honest face. I knew she was coming back. So normally I would have put the earrings back where they came from, but this time I put another pair of earrings there, and I kept this pair up near the register. Sure enough, 3 hours later, she came back. We did the transaction. I got the money. She got the gold. And I handed her the receipt. And I said, if you call the 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. And she said, that's fantastic. I've got something for you too. And she reached in her purse. And I thought, my heart just sunk. I was like, oh, she's going to pull out a Jack Chick pamphlet, tell me that I'm sinning, I need to drop to my knees and beg for forgiveness, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff I can't do because I sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. Right. But instead, she pulls out this little gold-colored cheap piece of tin. And I have no idea what it is. Turns out it's a blessed Miraculous Medal, but I don't know that. And she says then the strangest thing I've ever heard in my life. Now, remember that I partied with rock stars, and I helped about 1,200 rock stars sell their soul to the devil, become famous. And if you give a rock star unlimited booze and drugs and tell him to write a song, he'll write some crazy stuff. You know, my example for that is the number one song of 1999 was Bow to Ba by Kid Rock. You know, the people that don't remember that song, the chorus is Bow to Ba, to dang, diggy diggy, up jumps the boogie. Like, that's the best you got? That's your opening breakout song? That song went number one for the year. Like, everybody at my talks always laughed during that. And I said, you don't have any room to laugh. We made that song number one. We decided that was the best song. There was no other song better than that song that year. What she said was weirder than that. She said, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. And I thought, Blessed Mother, ISIS, Gaia. I don't know who she's talking about. And then she said it's very powerful. Protestants don't bless anything. So this woman represents some female deity cult. I'm not interested, but I'll say I am. I'll take it. You know, whatever she says. Well, he keeps talking on and on and on about how good it is and how righteous it is and how powerful it is. And, you know, at one time, usually there's between 2 and 5 high wizards in the world, but that number could be as low as 1 or as high as 10. So if that's the case, then that means at some point I could have been the only one high wizard out of 7 billion people.
Wow.
That's a power trip and a half. I had that much power over 7 billion people, and you're trying to tell me this worthless gold-colored piece of tin is powerful? 9-1. So I stick my hand out for it because my intention is to toss it on the ground or slam it on my counter and tell her it's worthless. I don't feel anything. This thing can do nothing to me. There's no power, no mystique to this. There's nothing to it. And I don't care if she gets so mad that she returns the gold and I have to give her her money back. And I'll even give her the boss of my boss number. You can call my boss and complain if you want, because I make the days, the weeks, the months, the quarters, and the year at my store. I am the best salesman my regional manager has. She is not going to believe that I was rude to anyone ever. So I take it in my hand and I clench my fist around it, all ready to tell her these things, except when I do, my store and my mall completely disappear. And it's me and this one woman still talking to me, and she tells me about the magic spell I did last night, and that's of the devil. And then she tells me of the 100 plus churches I helped split, and that's of the devil. And my 100 plus abortions I helped commit, and that's of the devil. And she told me about 9 or 10 other sins I've committed and ended everything with, and that's of the devil. Well, let's go back to me being the only one high wizard in 7 billion people. I did not have the magical ability to hand somebody else a worthless gold-colored piece of tin, get both of us into a darkened void, and tell the other person all their sins. Her magic is stronger than mine.
Yes.
I'm thinking, I might die this day. I can't fight her with magic. And if I let go of this metal and I let it drop, what happens if I just fall through this darkened void and can't find my way back home? I'm the manager of the mall. There's going to be cameras everywhere, and suddenly I just disappeared? Like, what happened to me? And how do I get back? And she says again, the Blessed Mother is calling you into her army. But this time when she said it, I knew instantly that was the Mother of God, which is a very strange revelation for a former Baptist to have. And when I realized it was the Mother of God, Mary showed up. This is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. She smiled at me, and I'm sorry, it was a smile that I knew I did not deserve. I was acutely aware of my 146 assisted abortions. And she took me by the hand, the hand that had the medal in it, and she turned me around. Divine Mercy Jesus was standing behind me. I didn't know what Divine Mercy was. I just knew I've got these rays of light shooting around me and under me and over me and through me. And in that instant, I knew that I had not sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. I knew that Jesus was my Lord and Savior. I knew that all my occult and my Satanism, my New Age, my Satanism was all false, fake. And I knew everything Catholic was truth. And the Blessed Mother told me that my job was to help her end abortion. And then I opened my hand. I was back in my store, back in my mall. And this woman, Marianne Wickman, was still talking to me. And she told me that she was Father Joseph Whalen's personal assistant in the St. Raphael Healing Oil Ministry. That he's so busy, he doesn't even have time to talk to her. And she's the personal assistant. And while she's talking to me, her phone rings. And it's Father Joe. And she says, I've got to take this. It's Father Joe. I was like, sure, you just said all that about it. Now, at this time, Father Joe was starting to go deaf. So he talked like everybody else was going deaf. So she gets on the phone with me and I can hear everything he says. And she's like, hello, Father Joe, what can I do for you? Can you hand the phone to the young man you're talking to?
What?
Sure, Father Joe. So she hands me the phone. And now I'm shaking like Ozzy Osbourne. And I take the phone and I'm like, hello? Welcome to the faith. Hand the phone back to Marianne. So I hand the phone back to Marianne. Then we get 2 more phone calls like that. After the first one, she sends her daughter out to the truck to get me one of each of everything. I wasn't Catholic yet. I didn't know what that meant. When her daughter came back in, she had a paper grocery bag that had pamphlets in it. Why do Catholics believe this or do that? A Catholic Bible, and around 125 Lighthouse Catholic media discs. And I went home that day and I walked in the door. My wife was doing the dishes. I walked in the door and I said, hey, honey, guess what? I'm Catholic now. She turned around. She was so mad. She was like, of all the things you could possibly
Wow. Yeah, I don't mind you as an occultist, but don't become Catholic.
be. But the next day, I started going to Catholic Mass. I started going to daily Mass, and she went with me.
Wow.
And I found out there's a such thing as Catholic etiquette. I didn't know this at the time. And I didn't know that there was Catholic etiquette. See, I went to daily Mass for probably 6 weeks, but I never got to go to Sunday Mass. I couldn't go to the obligatory on Saturday because I was a store manager, and I couldn't go on Sunday either because I was a store manager. But I could go to daily Mass because it's at, 8
Right, it's at
o'clock,
a decent time.
and the mall's not open then. So I'm able to go. Finally, I get a day where I can go to a Sunday Mass and see what all the hubbub's about. Because I'm going Monday through Saturday, but Saturday in the morning, and there's the same 12 people there every time. So I finally go to a Sunday Mass, and the parking lot is packed, and the church is packed. And we've never seen the church this full before. And so we're sitting in a pew, and at the now I leave you my peace I give you, the sign of everybody gets up to shake everybody's hand. And this guy comes up to me with a big smile on his face, and he says, I go to Mass here every Sunday. I've never seen you. And here's my faux pas. I said, I go to daily Mass here every day. I've never seen you either. And he lost the smile and just turned around and walked away. And I thought, note to self, don't say that to the next person.
Right. Wow.
And we were
So,
going to adoration every day. I would go anywhere from 30 minutes to 18 hours.
oh my gosh.
Adoration was my place.
The Lord sucked you in.
Jesus was my homie.
Oh my gosh.
Adoration is the coolest place on the planet.
It is my favorite hour of the month when I do my required hour, but I'll go as often as I can. And I remember feeling guilty going, why did I not come before? Why did I not come before? You know, I can't judge people who are not coming now, but I'm like, why are there not more people here? Because I was that person who didn't go. But if you watching this have never done adoration, just to sit there and stare at Jesus for an hour, it changes you. It changes you. And what many of you watching may not even realize is my guest, Zachary King, is blind. So he doesn't even see the Lord on the altar, but you sense him, don't you? You know he's there. You feel him. Or do you see him?
No, it's more of a sensing thing now. I'm about 93% blind. Some days it's better, some days it's worse.
Wow.
You know, I used to be able to see. I could see for the longest time. I went blind in 2012. So a lot of people think I can see because when they're talking to me, I can track them around the room.
With your eyes.
Right. But it's because I'm tracking their voice or their breathing. Sometimes their heart beating. It's not because I can see them.
There are so many things I want to ask you, but I just looked at the clock and we've been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes. And I know one of my other professionals tells me people get bored before an hour. Well, I don't think anybody's gotten bored. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, but I'd like to ask, can you come back and do a part 2?
Sure.
I would love that because I'd love to hear life after the miraculous medal. What is God doing with you today? What is, everyone is redeemable. Everyone is redeemable, and how God chose you for such a miraculous transition. I want to hear more, and I'm just so bummed at myself that I can't hear it right now. But let me ask you just a few more questions here. What do you say? So many questions. Which one do I pick? What do you say to kids who want to play with a Ouija board, or adults? Should we be worried about that, or what other things should we avoid?
You know, a Ouija board does sometimes, the planchette does move. There's not room for batteries. There's not a magnet anywhere. If you put a magnet up against that thing, it won't stick. It's not like it's been, and there's nothing, playing it is a violation of the first commandment. So, obviously God did not bless it.
So it's real.
You're playing a satanic thing.
Yeah.
It's not, when you're looking for Great Uncle Bob, that's not Great Uncle Bob. That's a demon that knew Great Uncle Bob.
Right.
So when you're asking Great Uncle Bob questions, of course he knows the secret handshake or the special toy that he gave you when you were 6.
Because he was there. He's timeless.
There. Yes.
Yeah.
The demon knows everything about you. They've been watching us since we were here, pretty much.
Yeah. So when we have our next show, I would like to ask you your thoughts on something you alluded to today, like Eucharistic miracles. That's something I have talked about before. If God is doing this, if Satan worshipers are trying to get their hands on the Eucharist, but they're not trying to get the bread from a Baptist church or a Pentecostal church, so I want to talk about things like that. I also want to talk about connections to some of the other things going on in our nation, like, the connections between the occult or Satan and homosexuality, or kind of disordered ways of living. So I'm grateful that you said you'd come back and answer those. I feel myself wanting to ask him now, but I'm going to be disciplined. So there's 2 things I want to say to you now. The first one is, it's a fill in the blank. when I die, I will know my life has been a success if.
I open my eyes and I'm dancing in purgatory.
Yeah. Now, some of our Protestant viewers will say, what is that? They don't know. Purgatory just means a place or a situation where God is washing the stain of your sin off of you. So basically, when you say, when you're dancing in purgatory, you know that means I will be going to heaven. If I'm dancing in purgatory, I got a ticket to heaven.
Right.
And you know, if you die a martyr, you go straight to heaven.
Right.
You know, so who knows?
Yeah.
The second and the last thing I want to kind of ask of you is name one thing you'd have our listeners, our viewers, do differently as a result of something they heard today. Just one thing they should do differently.
Give up their new age. It's not innocent fun. It's a sugar-coated version of Satanism.
Right.
There's not a such thing as angel cards. And not everybody that dies goes to heaven. There is a place called hell, and you will go there.
Yeah. Zachary King, you have been a tremendous blessing to me, to my viewers, to my listeners. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your boldness, for listening. I cannot wait for part 2 to get, how did you take all this in and learn what the Blessed Virgin had said? Okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be a warrior? How am I going to be on the team? All of the great stuff that comes after that. I personally, as a mother, want to thank you for your courage. And as a Catholic, and God bless you. I pray daily, and if you wouldn't mind praying that I have the courage to do what God has planned out for me, I'd be honored if you would do that as well. So we have to go off the air, and if you remembered what I said when we first went on the air, how I ended, join me. If you forgot, it's okay. So all of you viewers, please go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. Catch this show again, share it. Go to my YouTube channel. It will be uploaded to YouTube very shortly. Go follow me on all the social medias because the Lord is doing a great job of bringing me fantastic guests like this today. It's not about me. It's not about numbers. It's not about followers. It's not about popularity. It is about winning souls. And if you can share any of the shows with any of the guests God has given me and win one soul for Christ, you've just won the lottery because one soul is invaluable. No dollars can compare to what the Lord will bless you with for getting that one soul to heaven. So I appreciate you. And I appreciate you, Zachary King. So for each and every one of you, I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon. And I want to remind you always to live your life sunny side up.